Judge orders arrest warrant for Jennifer Lopez. After shocking Ben Affleck testimony in Diddy trial. Good evening. Tonight's top story unfolds in a case that has shaken the entertainment industry to its core. In a dramatic turn inside the Manhattan Federal Courthouse, a surprise witness delivered testimony so detailed, so damning, that it not only reignited a decades-old scandal, but also prompted an urgent federal arrest warrant for international superstar Jennifer Lopez, the man behind the statement, actor and director Ben Affleck. This is not just another celebrity courtroom appearance. This is the unraveling of a hidden chapter in entertainment history. One that's been buried beneath luxury mansions, platinum records, and carefully crafted public images. And now, the truth is clawing its way to light. It began with a federal trial centered around music mogul Sean "Diddy" Combs. A man once seen as untouchable now stands accused of orchestrating a complex network of illicit operations. Charges include financial misconduct, coercion, and manipulation. But no one anticipated the ripple effect triggered when Ben Affleck took the stand. He entered not as a Hollywood star, nor as an ex-husband with grievances, but as a man burdened with evidence. In his possession, a personal notebook, an encrypted hard drive, and a trove of digital correspondence. But more than anything, he carried a story, one that would shatter illusions and shake reputations. According to Affleck, everything began to unravel during the recent years of rekindled romance with Jennifer Lopez. The public adored the couple's return. Jennifer was back. But behind the scenes, Affleck began noticing changes. Late-night disappearances, cryptic phone calls, an emotional distance that hinted at more than just relationship fatigue. Then came the turning point. A single anonymous message. It read, "She never left. Check her phone." From there, suspicion snowballed into revelation. One night, driven by instinct, Affleck checked Jennifer's phone and found a disturbing thread, messages referencing clandestine meetings and familiar voices from the past. When he dialed the number, a chilling voice answered, "What are you digging into, Ben? Watch yourself." From that moment, Affleck began a private investigation. Hidden cameras, floorboards that creaked beneath strange weight, and then a tunnel. Beneath their shared Los Angeles home, a concealed passage led to a room he described as a vault of secrets. Inside, he discovered footage documents and a diary, all pointing to activities far more disturbing than he could have imagined. What made this discovery devastating wasn't just the criminal nature of what he uncovered, it was who had signed off on many of the documents. Handwritten notes bearing Jennifer Lopez's initials. Instructions that suggested she wasn't merely aware, but involved. In court, Affleck maintained a calm yet resolute tone. He detailed the night he was followed, his car rammed on a desolate road outside the city. He presented photos of injuries, dashcam footage, and police reports that had been swiftly buried at the time. All of it pointing to an effort to silence him. But the most dramatic moment came when he recounted a whisper from Jennifer. During a night, she appeared disoriented and emotional. Diddy has a notebook. It holds everything. That notebook found, weeks later, beneath their floor, contained a catalog of coordinated events that prosecutors now believe is the missing link in their case. Affleck's testimony, supported by digital metadata and cross-referenced with previous claims made by other witnesses, directly implicated Jennifer Lopez. The courtroom, described by onlookers as frozen in collective disbelief, watched as she sat expressionless, head-bowed, fingers clenched. Meanwhile, Diddy, flanked by his legal team, appeared composed but defiant. His attorneys dismissed Affleck's account as the revenge fantasy of a jilted ex. Yet, what they could not dismiss was the corroboration by Cassie Ventura, Diddy's former long-term partner, who had independently named Jennifer as a frequent presence at suspicious gatherings. The testimony sent shockwaves beyond the courtroom. Federal investigators issued a warrant to search the mansion shared by Affleck and Lopez. In it, they found a hidden safe confirming the presence of both the notebook and the encrypted hard drive. A forensic team authenticated the data, linking financial transactions to shell companies and noting charitable organizations used as fronts. Then came the final blow, a 1999 marriage certificate between Jennifer Lopez and Diddy, previously unknown to the public. According to legal analysts, it appears this union was used strategically to avoid mandatory testimony invoking spousal privilege. The document recovered from the hidden vault reframed an infamous nightclub shooting from that same year, an incident where rapper Shine served time while others walked free. In the wake of Affleck's revelations, the presiding judge ordered a full reopening of the 1999 case and, within hours, issued a subpoena for Jennifer Lopez to appear in court. But that appearance never happened. In the hours following the court's subpoena, Jennifer Lopez, actress, singer, business mogul, vanished. Her legal team offered no explanation. Her publicist went silent. Scheduled appearances were abruptly canceled. And by the following morning, her Beverly Hills estate stood still, gates locked, windows shuttered, and not a soul in sight. What began as a courtroom revelation had now become an international manhunt. Authorities confirmed that Jennifer Lopez had boarded a private jet in the early hours before dawn, her destination undisclosed. Sources within the Department of Justice hinted that the jet's flight plan had been scrambled midway through its course. What started as a short hop to the Bahamas ended up tracing a far more complex route, possibly landing in a nation with no formal extradition treaty with the United States. As the media scrambled for answers, satellite images emerged of the estate she left behind. Once a hub of celebrity gatherings and magazine shoots, the property now appeared abandoned dust gathering on luxury cars, pool chairs overturned, and security staff nowhere in sight. Federal agents acting on the court order entered the home within 48 hours. What they found confirmed many of Ben Affleck's claims. Behind a false wall in the living room, agents discovered the concealed tunnel he had described in sworn testimony. The passage led to a sealed chamber, its walls lined with soundproof padding camera mounts and archival boxes. A digital vault embedded in the floor contained footage, transaction receipts, and communications, many linked to aliases and offshore accounts. Inside, another marriage certificate was recovered. The original 1999 document now matched with legal correspondence instructing Jennifer to keep the union hidden for strategic purposes. And, perhaps most shockingly, investigators found a second safe, this one previously unknown, even to Affleck. Its contents have not been disclosed, but federal sources confirm it contained materials of high investigative interest. As news of Lopez's disappearance reached the public, speculation surged. Was she fleeing, guilt escaping danger, or being silenced by forces larger than any one individual? Media coverage exploded across platforms. Hashtags trended globally. Where is JLo? Shah. Diddy trial? Tsa. Affleck testifies. Public opinion splintered. Supporters of Lopez defended her as a potential victim caught in a web of control, while others argued that her silence was an admission of knowledge, if not complicity. Meanwhile, attention returned to Ben Affleck. Once known for blockbuster films and tabloid romances, he now stood at the center of one of the most complex legal dramas in entertainment history. As the media frenzy intensified, Affleck retreated from the spotlight, refusing interviews and making only brief public statements through legal counsel. In one such statement, his attorney said, "Mr. Affleck did not come forward for fame or attention. He did so out of a moral obligation to those who were never given a voice." But even as Affleck sought privacy, threats escalated. A black SUV matching the description of one that had previously rammed his car was spotted near his Boston family home. His parents, once reluctant to speak, were placed under temporary protective custody after their property was vandalized a second time. In red paint, the message read, "You were warned." In response, federal authorities confirmed they were investigating possible witness intimidation and obstruction of justice. They have since reassigned Affleck's protective detail and expanded surveillance across potential locations tied to the investigation. And yet the most pivotal developments continued unfolding inside the courtroom. With Jennifer Lopez absent, prosecutors began building a case around the physical and digital evidence recovered. Cassie Ventura returned for follow-up testimony, this time providing more detail about Lopez's presence at alleged gatherings referenced in the notebook. She described moments when Lopez issued instructions, coordinated guest lists, and managed image control after certain events. She wasn't just there, Ventura said on the stand. She orchestrated the tone. She knew the rules. The courtroom sat in stunned silence as she recounted a night in 2003 when a guest attempted to speak out and was later removed, never seen again. No direct link to Lopez was asserted, but the implication hung in the air. The judge, citing heightened urgency and public interest, issued an international notice through Interpol requesting cooperation in locating Jennifer Lopez for questioning. But with each passing hour, the trail grew colder. As Jennifer Lopez remained elusive, focus shifted back to the man at the center of the storm, Sean "Diddy" Combs. Once hailed as a pioneer of modern hip-hop, a mogul whose name defined eras of music, Diddy now sat silently in the defendant's chair, his expression unreadable, his eyes betraying little. Yet behind that composed exterior lay decades of strategic alliances, financial maneuvers, and carefully cultivated relationships that allowed his empire to flourish largely unquestioned. Inside the courtroom, federal prosecutors began what they called the forensic dismantling of that empire, showing how fame, influence, and fear were leveraged to build not just a brand, but an infrastructure. One designed to obscure transactions, protect secrets, and, if necessary, eliminate liabilities. Documents recovered from the hidden vault revealed a network of shell corporations tied to Diddy's name and several business partners, some real, some pseudonymous. These entities funneled large sums through supposed charitable initiatives, international events, and entertainment contracts. But behind the receipts, investigators uncovered patterns, recurring donations to anonymous accounts, luxury travel registered under initials, and property transfers to front companies. It wasn't just financial. Witness after witness described a culture of silence. Non-disclosure agreements were signed under pressure. Threats veiled or otherwise were issued to former staff collaborators and even journalists. One former producer stated under oath, "You didn't ask questions, not if you wanted to stay working." Testimony also highlighted a critical role played by intermediaries, assistants, legal aides, consultants, many of whom claimed they operated under the assumption they were protecting the brand. But a few admitted tearfully that over time they realized the cost. One said, "We weren't just protecting a company, we were helping bury people's pain." Parallel to the courtroom proceedings, media coverage exploded anew as archival footage resurfaced past interviews, backstage clips, and social media posts, now viewed under a drastically different lens. Moments once dismissed as eccentric or enigmatic now hinted at control, at manipulation, at fear, masquerading as loyalty. And still, Diddy remained unmoved. When asked by the judge whether he wished to speak, he declined. His legal team insisted the case was a witch hunt, fueled by public pressure and a former spouse's desire for revenge. But the tide was shifting. Public sentiment, once sharply divided, began to coalesce around a new narrative, one of accountability. Protesters appeared outside the courthouse. Advocacy groups demanded reform in entertainment industry protections. And on social media, a viral thread detailed how numerous whistleblowers had tried to speak out over the years, only to be discredited, silenced, or forgotten. One unexpected turn came when a veteran FBI agent, now retired, stepped forward. In a closed-door testimony later leaked to the press, he claimed, "We had concerns years ago. But every time we got close, someone shut it down." The implications sent shockwaves through both the legal and political arenas. If true, they suggested systemic interference, higher forces shielding one man's secrets in exchange for influence endorsements or silence. Still, even as the scaffolding of Diddy's empire began to tremble, prosecutors acknowledged a critical obstacle: Jennifer Lopez's absence. Without her direct testimony, key connections remained circumstantial. But then a new breakthrough. Affleck's legal team, working in coordination with federal investigators, decrypted a segment of the hard drive previously thought to be corrupted. Inside a set of timestamp video files, financial ledgers, and encrypted conversations. One clip dated mid-2002 showed a heated exchange between Diddy and an unidentified associate. In it, he referenced Jay as someone who's protected. She knows the codes. She made this happen. It was the most direct implication yet. In response, the court issued an updated statement designating Jennifer Lopez not only a person of interest, but a material witness with potential criminal liability pending further review. But even as prosecutors prepared their next move, the larger question loomed: how had such a vast network operated for so long? Who else might be involved? And most critically, how far were they willing to go to keep the truth buried? For Ben Affleck, these were no longer theoretical questions. They had become his daily reality. Since the moment he chose to come forward, his life had unraveled in ways no script could have predicted. Not only had he placed his career and reputation on the line, he had placed himself and everyone he cared about in the direct path of danger. In the days following his testimony, Affleck moved under full-time federal protection. He no longer slept in the same house twice. His children were relocated. His communication devices encrypted. The cost of speaking out had become total. Yet, despite the pressure, despite the constant reminders that silence would be easier, he stood firm. Court documents later revealed that Affleck had been approached weeks before his testimony by an unnamed intermediary. The message was blunt: "This isn't your fight. Walk away or lose everything." The intermediary has since been subpoenaed. But Affleck's decision to press forward wasn't born from a thirst for revenge. It was born from a single moment caught on video when he uncovered footage of a girl, young and visibly distressed, stepping into frame at one of the events described in the now infamous Notebook. Standing just feet away were Diddy and a woman resembling Jennifer Lopez. Affleck later told investigators, "That was the moment I knew I couldn't stay quiet, no matter what it cost me." His testimony set off a domino effect. Survivors who had remained silent for years began reaching out to authorities. Anonymous tips poured in. And most critically, journalists who had been stonewalled in the past reopened old cases, discovering that multiple stories had been shelved without explanation. One such journalist, speaking under condition of anonymity, described submitting an expose in 2007 that implicated Diddy in a number of questionable partnerships. She said the article was killed within hours by senior editors citing legal sensitivities. Now, nearly 2 decades later, the landscape had changed. The public, once skeptical of Affleck's motives, had begun to see the pattern: the threats, the manipulation, the erased records, the emerging whistleblowers, each with corroborating timelines and overlapping trauma. Among them, a former assistant who had worked briefly under Jennifer Lopez's tour management. Her account, delivered through tears, described being asked to sign an NDA for insurance purposes, only to later realize she was being silenced after witnessing an off-record meeting between Lopez and 2 individuals now under federal review. I thought I was just protecting her brand, she said, but now I wonder what I helped cover up. Federal prosecutors seizing on this momentum accelerated efforts to secure a court-sanctioned protective arrangement for key witnesses. At the same time, they worked to complete a digital chain of custody that connected Lopez's recovered communications to financial instructions embedded in the hard drive uncovered by Affleck. Forensic experts testified that metadata confirmed Lopez had accessed files tied to shell companies as recently as 6 months ago, well after she and Affleck had separated. Those same files referenced accounts now frozen under federal order. Still, questions persisted. Why would someone of Lopez's stature involve herself in something so dangerous? Was it love, fear, or ambition? Affleck asked this very question during his second testimony, hesitated before answering. I think it started as protection. But somewhere along the way, she stopped running and started building with them. The emotional weight of that statement hung in the courtroom. It reframed the narrative not as a tale of betrayal between lovers, but as a portrait of a man reckoning with the collapse of everything he thought he knew. Outside the courthouse, crowds had begun to gather. Some held signs of support. Others carried photographs of the now identified survivors. One voice among them yelled, "Keep going, Ben. We believe you." And yet, in the quiet moments between legal briefings and strategy meetings, Affleck reportedly remains haunted. In a private note shared with prosecutors, he wrote, "If anything happens to me, don't stop. Make sure the full truth comes out." Those were the final words in Ben Affleck's handwritten note to federal prosecutors now sealed as part of the ongoing investigation. A message not of fear, but of resolve. A call for courage in the face of a system built on silence. As the trial reached its final phase, the atmosphere around the courthouse shifted from media frenzy to something far more grave. What had begun as a celebrity scandal now stood as a defining moment of legal and cultural reckoning. Prosecutors, armed with a mountain of evidence, began their closing arguments. They laid out the structure of what they now formally referred to as the Empire Network, a clandestine web of shell companies, offshore accounts, and non-disclosure mechanisms. At its center, Diddy. Surrounding him, enablers, executives, legal counsel, and, as the prosecution, maintained Jennifer Lopez. The courtroom sat frozen as prosecutors revealed the final decrypted documents from the second safe. Inside were two critical files. The first, a series of internal memos between Diddy and Lopez discussing damage control strategy following the 1999 nightclub shooting. In them, references were made to redirecting heat, media, preps, and a chilling instruction: secure Shine's loyalty, use what we discussed. The second file was even more damning: a ledger of financial disbursements coded by initials. JL appeared 5 times each, entry timed with media scandals that were quietly suppressed or resolved without legal consequences. With Jennifer Lopez still missing, her absence became its own form of testimony. Legal analysts noted that a return now would only strengthen the appearance of guilt. Yet, in her silence, speculation flourished. Reports emerged that a woman matching Lopez's description was seen in Istanbul, then later in Dubai. Neither sighting was confirmed. Interpol notices circulated globally. Her team maintained no official comment. Back in the U.S., Diddy's defense entered their rebuttal phase. Their argument remained consistent that Affleck's testimony was emotional, not evidentiary, that the notebook could not be authenticated beyond a reasonable doubt, and that Cassie Ventura's memories, though powerful, were inconsistent. But the tide had turned. The jury, visibly shaken by the graphic details and volume of corroborated data, appeared unified in their focus. They reviewed the chain of documents. They watched segments of recovered footage. They listened again and again to the testimony of those who said they had waited years for someone to believe them. Then came the unexpected twist. On the eve of the verdict, a sealed envelope was delivered to the court clerk's office. Inside a short video, it showed Jennifer Lopez speaking directly into a camera. "I did what I had to do," she said. "We all did. You don't say no to power like that, not if you want to survive." Her location was unidentifiable. Her expression worn defiant, but not remorseful. The video was submitted as evidence authenticated and added to the official record. The jury deliberated for just 6 hours. The verdict guilty on multiple counts for Diddy, including conspiracy obstruction and financial fraud. Additional charges were referred to a second phase. Jennifer Lopez was now officially classified as a fugitive with multiple warrants filed under federal jurisdiction. As the gavel fell, silence swept the room. Ben Affleck sat motionless, a small slip of paper in his hand, his copy of the original note he'd written. Across it, he had scribbled a single word, "delivered." Outside, the world was watching. On live streams, through social media, from living rooms and mobile screens around the globe. Reactions varied, shock, vindication, mourning, and a collective re-examination of how much had gone unseen for so long. But, for the survivors, the real center of this story, it was something else. It was proof that no matter how powerful the opponent truth, once spoken, has a way of cutting through even the deepest silence. The case now moves into restitution and systemic review. The Department of Justice has announced a task force to investigate institutional failures. Civil lawsuits are expected, and already other figures, once thought untouchable, are being named in emerging affidavits. For Ben Affleck, the road forward is unclear. He has remained out of the spotlight, issuing only one statement. This isn't about one person. It's about the lives stolen, the fear created, and the lie we told ourselves that power meant protection. No more. And so, as the dust begins to settle, one question remains. Will this mark the beginning of a new era of accountability? Or will history repeat as it has so many times before? One thing is certain, the fire of justice was lit, and in this courtroom, it refused to be extinguished. This has been a developing report. We'll continue to follow this story as more unfolds.